Build a life that justifies your effort. Let that sentence hit you for a moment. Because right now, in this very second, your life is being shaped not by what you wish would happen, not by what you plan to do someday, but by what you are doing consistently, quietly, and often uncomfortably today. Every choice you make is a vote for the person you're becoming. And the question is simple, but it's not easy. Is that person worthy of the struggle you're putting in? You don't get meaning from comfort. You don't get pride from shortcuts. You don't get strength from excuses. You get it from carrying weight, from standing up straight when it would be easier to slouch, from telling the truth when a lie would protect your ego, from doing the hard thing when no one is clapping for you. Because the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards proof. And proof is built in silence, in repetition, in discipline. Look around you. Chaos is everywhere. Distraction is everywhere. Weakness is being sold as freedom. But deep down, you know better. You know you were not designed to drift. You were designed to aim, to build, to become. You were built to take responsibility for your own life and say, "This is on me." Not your parents, not your past, not your circumstances. You. And that's not a burden. That's power. Because when you accept responsibility, you stop waiting for permission. You stop blaming the weather for your lack of movement. You stop negotiating with your lower self. You decide that your future deserves better than your comfort. You decide that your effort should lead somewhere real. So today, right now, I'm asking you to raise your standards. Not for other people, but for yourself. Build a life that years from now you can look back on and say, that was worth it. Worth the pain. Worth the discipline. Worth the nights you didn't quit. Worth the version of you that refused to stay small. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And today, you choose what kind of life your effort will justify. Personal responsibility is the foundation of meaning, because without it, life becomes something that just happens to you instead of something you actively shape. When you refuse responsibility, you also refuse power. You hand your future over to circumstances, other people, and excuses. But the moment you decide that your life is your responsibility, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do about it?" That shift alone separates people who feel trapped from people who feel driven. Meaning doesn't come from pleasure, comfort, or approval. It comes from knowing that your actions matter. And they only matter when you own them. When you take responsibility, you accept that your choices have consequences. That's not something to fear, it's something to respect. Because if your choices have consequences, then your effort has value. Your discipline has weight. Your struggle has purpose. You're no longer just reacting to life, you're participating in it. Most people want meaning without burden. They want purpose without pressure. But that's not how reality works. The things that give your life depth are the same things that demand something from you. Responsibility forces you to grow. It forces you to organize your chaos, clean up your habits, and aim your energy in a direction that actually leads somewhere. You don't become strong by avoiding weight. You become strong by carrying it. And responsibility is the weight that builds your character. When you accept responsibility, you stop waiting for motivation and start relying on commitment. Motivation fades. Commitment stays. You stop needing perfect conditions and start working with the conditions you have. You stop blaming your past and start building your future. And in that process, you begin to respect yourself. Not because you feel good, but because you're doing good work. Hard work. Honest work. Work that aligns with the kind of person you want to be. There's also something deeply stabilizing about responsibility. It gives structure to your days and direction to your decisions. Instead of drifting, you aim. Instead of complaining, you act. Instead of hoping things will change, you become the one who changes them. And that's where meaning grows. Not in fantasies, but in effort. Not in comfort, but in contribution. When you carry responsibility, you also carry dignity. You walk differently. You speak differently. You make choices based on who you are becoming, not what feels easiest in the moment. You stop living for temporary relief and start living for long-term pride. And that's when your life begins to feel solid. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Built, earned. Meaning is not found. It is built. and it is built on the foundation of responsibility, choice by choice, day by day. When you decide that your life is worth the effort you're willing to give it, discipline today creates dignity tomorrow, because every act of self-control is a promise you keep to your future self. In the moment, discipline feels like restriction. It feels like saying no when your mind is begging for yes. But what you're really doing is choosing long-term respect over short-term relief. You're choosing to become someone you can stand behind, someone you don't have to make excuses for. And over time, those small, quiet decisions begin to shape your identity. Dignity isn't something you're given. It's something you earn. It comes from knowing you didn't run when things got hard. It comes from looking back at your life and seeing consistency instead of chaos. Discipline builds that consistency. When you wake up and do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it, you're training yourself to be reliable, not just to others, but to yourself. And that kind of reliability becomes self-respect. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. Disciplined people act and become ready in the process. They understand that moods are temporary, but standards are permanent. They don't ask, "What do I feel like doing today?" They ask, "What does my future require from me right now?" And that question changes everything, because now your behavior is guided by direction, not emotion. Discipline also creates freedom, even though it sounds like the opposite. When you control your time, your habits, and your impulses, you stop being controlled by them. You're no longer a prisoner of distraction, procrastination, or comfort. You become the one who decides. That's dignity, standing in your own authority, not needing to be pushed, begged, or rescued, just choosing to show up. And here's the part most people miss. Discipline compounds. One good decision makes the next one easier. One strong habit supports another. And before you know it, your life starts to look different. Not because of luck, not because of talent, but because you built a structure strong enough to carry your potential. Dignity grows inside that structure. Without discipline, effort leaks. You start things you don't finish. You promise things you don't deliver. And over time, that erodes your confidence. You stop trusting yourself. But with discipline, you become someone who follows through. Someone who keeps their word. Someone who doesn't need to talk big, because their actions speak for them. Every time you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, you're shaping the kind of person you'll be proud to be. Not tomorrow, not someday, but eventually. Discipline doesn't reward you immediately. It rewards you later, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you handle pressure, in the way you face the world without shrinking. So when you feel tired, unmotivated, or tempted to quit, remember this. You're not just choosing what to do in this moment. You're choosing who you're going to be. And the person you're building right now is the one who will live with the consequences of your choices. Whether you train them with discipline or abandon them to comfort, small daily choices compound into a powerful destiny, because your life is not built in grand moments. It's built in quiet ones. It's built in the decisions you make when no one is watching, when there's no applause, no pressure, no immediate reward. What you eat, what you think, what you tolerate, what you practice, and what you ignore all stack on top of each other. One choice might feel insignificant, but repeated over time, it becomes identity. You don't wake up one day as a new person. You slowly become one through the habits you live by. Most people underestimate the power of consistency. They want transformation in a week, confidence in a month, success in a season. But real change moves at the speed of discipline. One early morning becomes a routine. One honest conversation becomes a new standard. One workout becomes a lifestyle. One focused hour becomes a career. The compounding effect doesn't announce itself. It works silently, patiently, and relentlessly. Think about this. Your future is being shaped right now by what you repeatedly do today. Not what you intend to do. Not what you promise yourself you'll do tomorrow, but what you actually do today. Every small action is like a vote. You're voting for the person you're becoming. And over time, those votes decide the outcome. This is where most people lose. They look for big motivation instead of small consistency. They wait for a dramatic turning point instead of creating daily structure. But destiny doesn't change in one emotional moment. It changes in hundreds of disciplined ones. The power isn't in doing something massive once. It's in doing something meaningful again and again. Your thoughts work the same way. The way you talk to yourself every day becomes the way you see yourself. If you constantly say you're tired, stuck, unlucky, or behind, your mind will build a future to match those beliefs. But if you start choosing stronger language, clearer standards, and more honest self-talk, your direction shifts. Slowly, subtly, powerfully. Small choices also protect you from chaos. When you take care of the basics, your life stops falling apart in the big ways. When you manage your time, your money, your health, and your energy, you don't have to constantly recover from damage. You move forward instead of just surviving. And here's the truth that separates builders from dreamers. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your destiny is the result of your daily patterns, not your occasional bursts of effort. What you repeatedly do becomes what you permanently are. So don't wait for the perfect day to start. Don't wait for confidence to show up before you act. Start with what you can control. One choice, one habit, one discipline at a time. Because the future you want isn't created by huge leaps. It's created by small steps taken with consistency, direction, and intention until they turn into a life you recognize as your own truth, courage, in order to defeat chaos, because chaos is what happens when nothing is guided, nothing is named, and nothing is faced. Chaos is confusion, avoidance, and fear running the show. It's what takes over when you refuse to be honest with yourself, when you back away from what you know you should confront, and when your life has no structure strong enough to hold your potential. Chaos isn't just disorder in the world, it's disorder in the soul. And the only things that stand against it are truth, courage, and order. Truth is the first weapon against chaos because lies multiply confusion. When you lie to yourself about who you are, where you are, and what you're doing wrong, you blur the map of your life. You can't move forward if you don't know where you stand. Truth is painful sometimes, but it's also clarifying. It cuts through excuses. It forces you to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And once you see clearly, you can finally aim clearly. Chaos thrives in denial. It dies in honesty. But truth alone isn't enough. You also need courage. Because seeing what's wrong doesn't automatically mean you're willing to fix it. Courage is what allows you to walk into discomfort instead of running from it. It's what lets you have the hard conversations, make the difficult decisions, and let go of what no longer serves you. Chaos grows when you avoid responsibility. Courage shrinks it when you step up and say, "This is on me." Every time you face what you've been avoiding, you take a piece of your power back. Then comes order. Order is what you build after you tell the truth and act with courage. It's the structure you create in your habits, your schedule, your environment, and your standards. Order is waking up with purpose instead of drifting into the day. It's setting rules for yourself and following them. It's putting your life in alignment instead of leaving it scattered. Chaos feeds on randomness. Order starves it. Most people think chaos is exciting. They confuse disorder with freedom. But real freedom comes from discipline, direction, and clarity. When your life is ordered, you have room to grow. When it's chaotic, you're always just reacting. Truth gives you the map. Courage gives you the movement. Order gives you the foundation. And here's the deeper part. When you live in truth, act with courage, and build order, you don't just reduce chaos around you. You reduce it within you. Your mind becomes quieter. Your decisions become cleaner. Your path becomes clearer. You stop feeling lost because you're no longer lying, hiding, or drifting. You're standing. You're facing. You're building. Chaos will always try to pull you back into comfort, confusion, and avoidance. But every day you choose truth over illusion, courage over fear, and order over disorder, you push back against it. You become someone who doesn't just survive in the world, but shapes their place in it with clarity, strength, and intention until your life feels less like something that's happening to you and more like something you're consciously creating with your own hands. Your future is built by what you do when no one is watching, because that's where your real character is formed. Not in public moments, not when there's praise, pressure, or an audience, but in the quiet spaces where you could get away with doing nothing, cutting corners, or choosing comfort. Those moments reveal who you truly are, and more importantly, who you are becoming. When no one is watching, there's no reward except the one you give yourself, and that reward is identity. Every unseen decision is a brick in the foundation of your life. The way you spend your time when you're alone, the habits you protect in private, the standards you hold when there's no one to impress. These things shape your future far more than your big public efforts ever will. Because success isn't built in bursts, it's built in routines. And routines are created when no one is clapping for you. Most people are disciplined only when they're observed. They work harder when someone's checking. They behave better when someone's judging. But real growth happens when you don't need an audience to stay committed. When you show up for yourself. When you train even when you're tired. When you learn even when it's boring. When you stay honest even when a lie would be easier. That's where self-respect is born. What you do in private becomes who you are in public. You don't magically become confident, strong, or focused when the spotlight hits you. You bring with you whatever you practiced in the dark. If you practiced excuses, you bring excuses. If you practice discipline, you bring discipline. If you practiced avoidance, you bring hesitation. But if you practiced effort, structure, and consistency, you bring power. Your future doesn't care about what you say you'll do. It cares about what you repeatedly do. The world eventually reflects your habits back to you. If you waste time today, you pay for it tomorrow. If you invest effort today, you live in the results later. No one sees those early sacrifices, but everyone sees the outcome. And here's the truth. The version of you that succeeds is not louder, luckier, or more talented. It's more disciplined in private. It's the version that didn't quit when it was bored, didn't drift when it was tired, didn't negotiate with its standards when it was alone. That's the version that builds a future worth living in. So stop waiting to be seen. Start acting like your life is being watched by the person you're becoming. Because one day, that person will look back and either thank you or blame you. The work you do in silence decides which one it will be. And if this message helped you think differently about your effort, your habits, and your future, then do me a favor and show your support by hitting like, dropping a comment with what stood out to you, and subscribing for more motivation that pushes you to build a life that truly justifies your effort. Like, comment, and subscribe.